Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from AnthonysCustoms, and for this review we are looking at the Variable Action Heroes Pokken Tournament Mewtwo figure, which for Pokemon fans is something we've all been very excited for. We were hoping that we would get some really nice new Pokemon figures, and Lucario came out not that long ago, proved that they weren't that great. At least Lucario wasn't. In fact, the DR's one was probably a little bit better. So now we have Mewtwo, and we're hoping that Mewtwo rectifies the situation. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 4 3/4 inches tall, which makes him just about 12 centimeters. Now, of course, you can adjust the height a little bit, but I have him in a fairly neutral stance, which I think is probably the best way to judge that. So he's definitely small. He's definitely smaller than the D-Arts one. Unfortunately, I don't have mine with me to compare. You guys know I'm in the middle of a move, and everything I have basically is not with me, unfortunately. But either way, this guy has a slightly different aesthetic since it is the Pokken tournament version, and some people like it, some people don't. Personally, I'm okay with it. However, it does have some very harsh shading. You can see down here by the knees and some throughout the lower legs, and even over here by the elbows and the bottom of the chest. It's got some very, very dark shading. So as far as the aesthetics go, some people might like it, some people might not. I'm going to leave that up to you. However, I will note that the shading is hardly consistent, I guess is a good way of putting it, because of these knee joints. The various knee joints are very light and the shading is very dark, so it's very distracting to look at. Now, before we talk about the figure anymore, let's talk about the accessories. We have a total of 3 different heads. We have one head with the eyes facing straight ahead, one with them looking to the left, and one with them looking to the right. We have a total of 4 hands, not counting the one with the accessory connected to it. We have the 2 open hands, and then we have the 2 closed fist hands. Now we might as well mention the one with the accessory. That's got the Psycho Cut accessory according to the official documentation. I guess that's what it's called. I don't know. I didn't know Mewtwo had a move called that, but maybe that's a newer thing. But it's really cool looking. They did a good job with it. We do have 2 other effect parts. We have what I thought was a Mega Punch, but I guess it's a Fire Punch. I didn't know Mewtwo could learn that move either, but I guess he can. And that looks really cool. And technically, I lied. He does have a hand inside that punch, but it's really just the punch, so you don't have to really worry about that. But it's very well executed. And then lastly, we have the Aura Sphere, which I have to say, I kind of like what they did by making it look 3D by having the stuff inside the clear ball, but having the big glue mark going all the way around, and mine has a big yellow smear of glue inside of it, just doesn't look that great. It looks kind of cheap, but I guess under the right lighting, if you put it on a display properly, it could look pretty cool. Now, lastly, we have 2 different display stands. We have the one for the effect parts, or at least for the Aura Sphere. It's a little tiny base with 4 different uprights. They are ball pegs, so you can move them around, but the base is tiny, and the Aura Sphere is just about the same size as the base, so it'll be top heavy and fall over if you don't leave them mostly straight up and down. And then we have the one for Mewtwo himself, which is a 3-part or a 3-jointed upright with a clip to hold him by the waist. So not a bad spread of accessories. I'm pretty happy with that. So let's see if the figure is actually good enough to want to put it on display with the accessories. I think the paint job, for the most part, aside from mentioning that weird shading, is pretty good. You can see the face looks nice. The eyes are fairly well lined up and they look pretty clean. The mouth and nose are pretty well done, and then the purple line for the torso area is pretty good. The rest of the color is fairly uniform. I don't really have too many complaints other than that really egregious shading at the legs for the most part. As far as the aesthetics go, I think we're good except for the tail. It just doesn't look good. The fact that they sculpted curves into the tail is not a good idea. It's posable. It's posable, so we don't really need the curves built in. I guess they did that to reduce the amount of articulation they needed so that you can still pose it, and in some cases it works. Like you can see, it's got a nice enough flow to it, but the gapping at the articulation is pretty bad. So I think despite the fact that the DR's Mewtwo had all of those different segments, I think that actually looks better. I don't know, you guys can let me know. I guess it's one of those things where it's going to be subjective and up to you. I'm just not really a fan of the way they executed this articulation. It looks pretty sloppy. For the head, we have a double ball peg on top of the neck, and then the neck itself is on a single ball peg. It's very stiff, so you kind of have to really go down there and push it directly, but you can move the head around pretty well. This piece is kind of soft and has a ball peg down here, so it'll move around with the head. You don't really have too many issues with that, so you can move it well enough. It doesn't look up at all, though. Not even a little bit. It will look down, though. So if you want to put them in like a hovering pose, that would be fine. For the shoulders, you have a ball peg where it connects to the torso, and then a ball hinge where you're going to get all of your range. You can actually raise the arm up pretty well. It does look a little strange, but it's not too bad. And of course, you have your bicep swivel and your full rotation. However, due to the sculpt of the torso, it's going to be very limited, so that's not great. We have a ball hinge for the elbow, so it'll swivel at both ends, and then you can give him a full 90-degree bend, so that's pretty cool. And then we have the same type of joint for the wrist, so that's pretty good. For the upper torso, we have, I think it's a double, but it could just be a single ball peg. Feels like a double though. You can rotate it around and you can lean it back a little bit, not a whole lot though. You can lean it forward, kind of a fair bit, so it leans pretty far forward, and then you can lean it side to side some. It doesn't give you the greatest range, but you can do that. And then we do have, again, it might be a single, might be a double. I think it's just a single for the lower torso, which does have a lot of range, but it does have a lot of gapping also. I don't know, guys. As I'm going through this, I'm liking it less and less, but I guess it's going to be up to you if you like the way they did the articulation and the way they did the sculpt. For me, it's not really working. Now, for the hips, we have this kind of really overly complicated design, and they did it so that you can do this. You can raise the legs up pretty far if you wanted to, and it doesn't look terrible when you do it, but it's just a really, really odd way of doing it. So I'll show you on this side, because this side's extra loose for me for some reason. We have this joint in here, which, like I said, it's overly complicated. This is essentially just a hinged ball peg like we've seen on figure arts and Figmas and all kinds of different figures. So that's what they have. However, it's so stiff in there, it's very hard to use. And then this pegs into this. All right, like that. So that'll swivel like that and then give you a hinge on top of what's another swivel down in the thigh, which is really loose. So it's way too many different pieces for not really accomplishing anything. And then you're probably wondering, what about that piece that fell? Well, that's just a floating piece to hide stuff. So it's just weird, and it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't really accomplish anything that a ball hinge wouldn't have accomplished, and it still doesn't look bad. I mean, it doesn't look good. You can see in there we have that little brass piece, which I don't understand what that's for, and there's a lot of gapping, and it's just very disjointed looking and ugly. So I don't like it. Technically it has good range, but unless you're looking at it directly from the side, it looks pretty bad. We have a ball hinge for this knee and this knee, so you can move them around pretty much however you want to, but it does look very segmented again. For such an angular sculpt, it just doesn't line up with those round balls for the hinges. It just doesn't look good. I don't know, guys. I don't like it very much. And then lastly, we have another ball hinge for the foot. So yeah, technically it has good range of motion for most parts, but it's pretty ugly in most cases. So as unfortunate as it is, this Mewtwo figure for me is not very good. It's basically on par with Lucario, except Lucario actually looked pretty good. So unless you happen to find a really nice pose for this guy and just don't want to touch him ever again, it's going to be pretty disappointing. And I have to say I like the D-Arts version better despite the flaws that it had. This one definitely has cooler accessories, I think, and it has the potential to be a cooler looking Mewtwo, but I don't think they executed it well enough. I think the Variable Action Heroes line should stick with probably the anime like One Piece, because they're nailing most of those figures, and so far the Pokemon figures have been duds. So I have to say I don't recommend it, not for the price point anyway. These are 60 to 70 bucks, so forget about it. That's way too much. So there it is. I'm done with that video. I don't like the figure, unfortunately. It's kind of upsetting. Anyway, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you turn on that notification setting. It's right next to the subscribe button. Click that bell, turn on notifications so you see all of my videos. And in the meantime, keep collecting.